Hi guys. I know many of you are seeing my face now and thinking, oh my God, like what is Funke going to tell us now? I know, yes. But yes, the Nigerian government has changed yet again the protocols for traveling to Nigeria. So basically, the rules you have to follow for traveling to Nigeria has changed. And these rules that I'm going to share with you today comes into effect today, Monday, the 11th of January, 2021. Because I know that there's some people that are watching me right now and it's your first time seeing me talk about the travel protocols, I am not going to assume that you've seen my old videos about the protocols and just tell you about the little change from that video. I'm going to document every single thing in this video again. Some of you that have seen my protocols before might say, okay, it's similar to the what you shared in the maybe like 5 videos ago. I understand because you've seen it before, but many people haven't seen my videos before. So what I'm sharing in this video is standalone, everything you need to know with regard to the new protocols that travelers to Nigeria have to follow starting today, Monday, the 11th of January, 2021. For many of you that have watched my previous videos, I'll tell you that the major change in this video compared to my past videos is that the Nigerian government has now said that it's no longer 120 hours that you need to have done your COVID tests in terms of the time limit. You now only have 96 hours to your flight to get your COVID test done. You have to do your test within 96 hours of your flight, right? So they've reduced the time limit that they've reduced the time bandwidth that you have with regard to getting your COVID test done. That is the major change. To quickly introduce myself, my name is Sassy Funke. I'm a Nigerian author. I recently wrote the first ever high quality, locally curated travel guide for Lagos, Nigeria. You can buy it worldwide. It's on Amazon. It's locally stocked in Nigeria. I'm going to leave all the links in the description box below so that you can get a copy of my book and support me. I'm also the founder of Travel to Niger. Travel to Niger is the #1 trusted platform for everything travel to Nigeria. Even with regard to this update that I'm sharing with you right now, this update was actually shared on the Travel to Niger Instagram page a couple of days ago. So if you're on the page, you get information much quicker. So I ask that you go to the Travel to Niger Instagram page, follow the page, and turn on your notifications so you never miss any updates at all. If you have specific questions after, I would ask that you also join the Travel to Niger private Facebook community. It's an incredible community. I'll leave all the links below for that too. So make sure also you subscribe to my channel. We're getting close to 40,000 subscribers. I would be so happy if we could make it so soon. So please, please, please hit that red button down below and give this video a huge thumbs up. So guys, I'm going to go through this document with you. So a lot of things is going to be like me reading out and explaining things to you, but I'm also going to leave the link down below so you can go and check it out by yourself and read it if you want to and verify it. So this is a presidential task force on COVID that shared this provisional quarantine protocol for travelers arriving in Nigeria. So for people traveling to Nigeria, this is for you. So the first section, it's about the pre-departure from country of exit, right? So they're saying these are the rules that you have to follow in the country of exit. So if you're in the UK, you're traveling to Nigeria, these are the things you have to do in the UK before you travel to Nigeria. So the first thing, they break down the section and say pre-boarding. So before you actually board the plane. Step 1, the passenger must perform a COVID-19 PCR test not more than 4 days, 96 hours before boarding. PCR tests done more than 96 hours before departure are not valid, and persons will not be allowed to board. You need to get a PCR test done within the time frame stated. It's really important. The test validity commences from the time the sample is taken. So a lot of people ask this question in the past about whether is it when you get the result or when you actually do the test. It's actually from the time and date to do the test. It has to be within 96 hours to your flight. For passengers with multiple connections before arrival in Nigeria, The 96-hour test validity is from the first point of departure. This is very, very important. So what they're saying here is that if you are, for example, let's say you're in the US and trying to fly to Nigeria and your connecting flight is actually in London, the 96 hours is from your first port of departure, which is going to be in the US, right? Not London. You're just connecting there. The validity of the PCR test has nothing to do with you're connecting, where you're connecting is from where you're leaving, right? Which makes sense. Step 2, all intending passengers, including diplomats and children less than 10 years old, must register via an online national travel portal, which the name is the Nigeria International Travel Portal. Website is nitp.ncdc.gov.ng. And then proceed to fill in the online health declaration self-reporting form located on the portal. So what they're saying here is that even diplomats, you might not know this, but diplomats and children less than 10 years old, they are not required to get a COVID test done. But this point here is saying that even if you're not required to get a COVID test done, even if you're a diplomat or you have a child under 10, you still need to register on the NITP on this particular portal, right? The point goes on to say they should ensure that the information and contact details provided on the form are correct and verifiable, right? Passengers must be reachable via the phone number, email, and residential address they are provided. So use a valid email and address. Passengers must also inform the port health officials on arrival of any change in their health circumstances since completion of the health declaration form, self-reporting form. So what they're saying here is that if, for example, you started having symptoms once you landed in Nigeria and your health circumstance changed, maybe you're coughing more or you have a certain ailment or symptom, they're saying that you have to inform the port officials that you're going to meet once you land in Nigeria. In bold, they then state that passengers who falsify their status as diplomats will face prosecution, right? And you might be wondering, how can you falsify yourself as diplomat? When you go on the Nigerian International Travel Portal, if you select that you're a diplomat, it will automatically generate that you've paid for your COVID test because diplomats do not have to pay. So that's why they're saying that basically don't click diplomat if you're not a diplomat, right? Because if you click diplomat, you will be allowed to board the plane because it will say that you paid, basically. That's why they say that. Step 3. After filling the online health declaration self-reporting form, passengers will be directed to upload their negative COVID-19 PCR test on the portal. Once this is successfully done, they will proceed to the payment section of the travel portal. Passengers are advised to still bring an electronic or hard copy of their PCR test for presentation at the portal. Yes, so pretty self-explanatory there. On this portal, you're going to have to upload your PCR test, your negative COVID-19 PCR test. And after you've done that, it will take you to another website where you actually have to pay for the COVID-19 test. The second test you're going to have to do in Nigeria. Also, they say that I've advised this before, that it's important for you to actually get a hard copy. I advise take a hard copy, a printout document of your COVID test results to present at the airport. The next step, step 4. On reaching the payment section of the portal, passengers will be requested to select their preferred lab sample collection center based on where they will be self-isolating at day 7 of arrival in Nigeria. A list of accredited private labs, sample collection centers across the country are available on the payment platform. So there's going to be a lot of choice in terms of If you're not based in Lagos, you're based in Ondo, Akure, or wherever, there will be private labs that have been accredited by the government where you can do your tests. So you don't have to worry if your station is not, you're not going to be in Lagos, Abuja at day 7 of arrival in Nigeria, which is when you have to do your COVID test, your second COVID test. The next stage is to choose a bank payment gateway and then proceed to pay for the day 7 in-country COVID-19 PCR test. Please note that passengers paying with Naira should use cards issued by a Nigerian bank. So this, I guess, is to advise with regards to potential issues with paying on the portal with your bank card. If you're using a Nigerian bank card, select the Naira denomination, basically. Like the Naira, the currency Naira, if you're using a Nigerian bank card. In bold, it states here that the diplomats and children less than 10 years old are exempted from payment for the repeat COVID-19 test. So this is to say that you diplomats and children under 10 do not have to do the first test to go to Nigeria, and also do not have to do the second test going to Nigeria. They don't have to do the second test whilst they're in Nigeria either. Step 5. Following successful payment, passengers should download the Permit to Travel certificate, also known as the QR code, using the Get Permit to Travel button visible at the top right-hand corner of the portal. Save it and print the form for presentation at the point of boarding. The Permit to Travel certificate QR code will have a paid label if payment is successful, and unpaid label if payment has not gone through yet or is unsuccessful. A copy of the Permit to Travel QR code will also be sent to the email address provided by the passenger. Important to have your email address to be the correct one, but they're basically saying that if the document, the printout document, if your Get Permit to Travel document doesn't have paid written on there, you will not be allowed to board. Bear this in mind. So everything I've stated is things that you have to do pre-boarding. Now let's move on to actual boarding. Number 1, they state here that prior to boarding for Nigeria, passengers must present 2 documents at their point of departure to be allowed to board. So you need to give them at the airport 2 documents for them to basically approve you to check in and board the flight. A negative COVID-19 PCR test administered within 4 days, 96 hours of departures. Airlines have been directed not to board passengers with non-PCR COVID-19 tests such as antigen or antibody tests, a positive COVID-19 test result, or tests performed beyond 96 hours of boarding. They're basically saying that they've informed the airlines that if you're positive, you don't do a proper PCR test, or you do a test outside of the 96 hours time limit they give you to do the test, you can't go anywhere. You can't fly. They won't board you. B, you need a permit to travel certificate QR code generated from the NITP, the Nigerian International Travel Portal, on completion of the health questionnaire, uploading of a negative COVID-19 PCR result, and payment for the repeat day 7 COVID-19 PCR test at day 7 arrival in Nigeria. Passengers failing to show a permit to travel certificate QR code will not be allowed to board. Yes. So they're basically saying that you need 2 documents, the negative COVID-19 PCR test within the time limit 4 days stated, and the permit to travel QR code. C, passengers departing from the UK, United Kingdom, or the Republic of South Africa must show evidence of having paid for their post-arrival day 7 COVID-19 PCR test prior to boarding. It's clear here that if you're traveling from the UK or South Africa, it is mandatory for you to have paid for that COVID-19 test before you get to Nigeria, right? But it seems like for other countries, they don't, as in the fact that they pointed that out, it means that for other countries, if you just have your negative COVID test or your permit to travel QR code, you should be fine to travel to Nigeria. But I would personally advise you guys, just pay for it in advance. Like, you don't want stress in your life. Pay for it in advance, regardless of where you're traveling from, just in case that they wake up tomorrow and change the rules again. Number two, boarding. This has less to do with the passenger boarding, but it has more to do with the airline. They basically, I'll summarize this. They basically said that airlines that board people that don't provide, the negative PCR test and the QR code will be sanctioned, right? So if you're not Nigerian, they'll basically send you back at the cost of, like, deport you back at the cost of the airline. And if you're a Nigerian or you have a permanent residency in Nigeria, you'll be allowed to enter the country, but they'll put you in a mandatory quarantine for 8 to 14 days, depending on your PCR test done on day 7 of arrival at a government facility. So the government will take you and put you in a facility if you basically come to Nigeria without a COVID test result. And also, they're going to charge you or the airline for this stay at the facility center in Nigeria. So bear that in mind. They said they're also going to fine the airline $3,500 per passenger if they don't comply with the rules. And airlines that don't comply will also be banned from coming to Nigeria. Guys, Nigerian government is not playing anymore. They're not playing anymore. But it seems like the airlines, it is in their interest to follow the rules. So most likely they won't let it slide. So bear that in mind. Number 3, at the time of boarding, travelers will be required to undergo temperature screening and ask about their COVID-19 symptoms. Passengers with temperature greater than 38 degrees centigrade or other COVID-related signs and symptoms shall not be allowed to board the flight. So even if you have a negative PCR test, you have your QR code, you paid for your second country COVID test, they're basically saying that you will not be allowed to board the flight if you have symptoms. So that all has to do with boarding. I'm now going to touch on arriving in Nigeria. So everything we spoke about before was before you board the plane. Now we're going to talk about arriving in Nigeria. This is what the document says. All passengers are kindly advised to strictly adhere to instructions given by the port health services at the arrival terminal. Passengers who fail to adhere to instructions may be sanctioned by relevant security personnel. All passengers arriving in Nigeria will be required to, 1, go through the routine port health screening and present electronic or printout evidence of your negative PCR test that you did before and your permit to travel QR code. If you want to see the process of actually arriving in Nigeria, I shared it in another video. I'm just leave the link up there so you can actually see my experience traveling and arriving at the airport in Lagos, Nigeria last month. Number 2, they'll be required to present their international passports for clearance through the Nigerian Immigration Service Systems Migrant Identification Data Analysis System. The Nigerian Immigration Service will not retain passports. Remember, like a couple of months ago, they used to keep passports. That no longer happens. They will not be retaining anyone's passport. Number 3, proceed to a mandatory 7-day self-isolation quarantine in their selected place of abode. Self-isolation in the city of port of entry is not mandatory. What does that mean? They're saying that just because you landed in Lagos doesn't mean you have to self-isolate in Lagos. You can, if your home is Ijebu-Ode or Ondo or Kano, wherever you're based, that is where you self-isolate. During this time, so during your 7-day self-isolation, passengers are advised to avoid physical interaction with friends, families, colleagues, and other members of the public. Passengers should check their emails text messages regularly for updates regarding the arrangement of their repeat COVID-19 PCR test from the lab of their choice. Hence why it's really important to ensure that the email address you give is right, and also the phone number is a number that they can actually reach you when you're in Nigeria, in case the lab has to call you to advise you of anything, so they can reach you. Number 4, present themselves at the lab sample collection centers on the 7th day of arrival. Your samples will be taken and a COVID-19 PCR test done. The selected private lab provider will send you a reminder text message, email, or phone call to the passenger a day before your appointment. Kindly note that passengers who fail to submit themselves at the sample collection center on day 7 of arrival will be sent a text reminder and their details forwarded to the state public health department teams and NCDC for active follow-up. So if you don't do it on day 7, they're going to basically they'll send you a reminder that you need to come and do it, but also forward your information to the health department. B, the private labs will forward details of passengers who decline or do not show up for repeat PCR tests on day 14 of arrival, right? So they said here that on day 14, if you still have not yet done your COVID test, they have to report you to the government. The previous point whereby they actually forwarded your details has more to do with them reminding you to go and do it. But by day 14, if you don't do it, they're going to forward your details and report you to the government. And we all know what happened last time. You know, they started punishing people that didn't do their COVID test by banning and all that stuff. But we'll get to that. C, okay. Oh, so they say here, these passengers will face travel restrictions on their passport for 6 months and will not be able to travel abroad for this period. Non-Nigerian passport holders will have their visas revoked. C, test results will be ready within 72 hours, and the state public health department teams and Nigeria's Center for Disease Control will be informed accordingly. What does this mean? So you get your result from your private lab within 72 hours, but your results will be forwarded on from your lab to the government, so you don't have to worry about informing the government about your test results. D, persons who test positive for COVID-19 will be managed based on the national guidelines for COVID-19 treatment. So the government will work on managing you. E, persons who test negative for COVID-19 after day 7 shall end your self-isolation on receipt of their results, but must continue to self-monitor for symptoms until day 14. So if you're negative for COVID-19 post your 7 days, they said just keep monitoring yourself. You're free to now, to meet family and friends, whoever you want to meet, but continue to self-monitor your symptoms for the next couple of days up to day 14. F, travelers reporting or developing symptoms of COVID-19 on arrival or during screening will not be allowed to self-quarantine and will be placed in institutional quarantine. So basically, if you land in Nigeria and you start getting, you have a fever, like a high temperature above 38 degrees, or you start getting other symptoms related to COVID-19, they're going to not take you away, but you're going to have to isolate in a government center, basically. G, for deportees, if one person tests positive for COVID-19, all close primary contacts will be required to undergo enhanced screening and a follow-up PCR test if necessary. And finally, for this section, H, public health officers will monitor passengers during the period of self-isolation or quarantine. For this reason, the passengers must provide a valid and functional telephone number on their online registration form. Persons who develop symptoms suggestive of COVID-19 during the isolation period must immediately be tested for COVID-19. If positive, they'll be managed based on national guidelines for COVID-19 treatment. I really hope that makes sense. So the final section here is C, the exit from self-isolation, which I touched on a little bit already, but I think they just restated it here again. Persons who test positive for COVID-19 after the post 7-day test shall be managed based on national guidelines for treatment. So the government will put you in an isolation center. I think it's all paid for. The government pays for that. Number 2, persons who test negative for COVID-19 after 7 days of self-isolation quarantine will be allowed to exit self-isolation on receipt of their results. To restate it here again, that this protocol that I've stated, all this information I've given you guys, comes into effect today, Monday, the 11th of January, 2021. I really hope that you understand, what the protocols are for coming into Nigeria. I hope it's been super useful. If you're my existing subscriber, thank you again if you watch it up to the end. If you did, say, I did, Sassy, in the comment section so I know that you actually watched the video all the way to the end. Thank you again once again for your support. If you have any questions as usual, don't forget to join the Travel to Niger Facebook community page. I'll leave the link down below too. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Don't forget to watch my other videos on my channel with regard to travel protocols. I really hope you have a safe trip traveling to Nigeria. And yes, I wish you all the best and I wish you an amazing 2021. Bye.